This is a Reader's Greek New Testament. It's published by Zondervan, and it is their third edition. Being a Reader's Greek New Testament, it is of course the Greek text, and you can see it has glosses or definitions of the uncommon words in the footnotes. The cover is made of leather soft. That's Zondervan's common bonded leather material, and it's not very nice, to be honest with you. It feels sort of rubbery and not very much like leather. It's got a larger footprint than a lot of other Greek New Testaments, but it's also mercifully thin. On the spine it has the title Reader's Greek New Testament written in gold, and you'll notice that is that's horizontal, so you can store it horizontally as a Bible ought to be. Inside we see this is a very basic paste down binding with white end sheets, and you can also see here you're getting a lot of texture from the reinforcement of the spine, and also this outside here, this fold over. Now looking at this end sheet, if we pull it back a little bit, you can see it's a very bright white, but this it's a bit different to the paper itself, which is an off-white, which is notable. It speaks to the quality. You can also see this crease here. That is a result of the very, very thin Bible paper that's being used. Frankly, it's not the highest quality. You can see here it almost looks like it's wrinkled from water damage or something, from the moisture. And that is the case throughout the Bible. Having used it for about a month and a half, it feels just slightly sub-premium. My lighting is sort of increasing the effect of that, but it is noticeable. Now, as you can see here, it has some gold gilding. It's not the nicest gilding. What's really noticeable is that it has these sharp corners instead of rounded corners, which will increase the damage done to it over time. So the cover is actually sort of disappointing. As far as I can tell, it is the only softcover Reader's Greek New Testament on the market right now, but I'm actually looking at having it rebound because it is that bad. Now, looking at the text itself, we have a title page, and then we have the copyright information here, and then we have the table of contents in Greek, and then the introduction. And you'll see here the idea behind this Greek text, and it's actually not a standard Greek text. It's actually, well, it follows the UBS 5th edition, except where the NIV disagrees with it. So in fact it actually follows the NIV's readings of the Greek text. Thankfully it has these disagreements footnoted so that this can be used when you need a standard critical edition, although unfortunately it lacks that critical apparatus. Now if we look here at John chapter 1 verse 3 especially, you may notice that it follows the punctuation of the UBS, not the NIV. So it agrees with the UBS in that respect. Well, I got the chance, I'll just mention this ribbon, which is frankly really nasty. It's thin, it's single-sided satin, which is unimpressive. It's just not great. I'm going to change this ribbon out, even if I don't rebind the book itself. Now, looking at the Greek text itself, you can see here that chapter numbers are in really big text, and verse numbers are really well defined throughout it, which is wonderful. Now, we also have in superscript these numbers, these references directing us to the footnotes themselves. And the footnotes include every word on the page in question that occurs in the Greek New Testament fewer than 30 times. And these footnotes take pretty standard lexical formats. So here we have a noun in its lexical form, nominative singular. Then we have the genitive ending, then the article, and then we have a gloss or multiple glosses afterwards. Other word types receive similar treatments. You may also notice this cross here in the text, and that directs you down to these bottom footnotes here, the corresponding verses, which include textual notes, things like variants from the UBS and Old Testament quotations, things of that nature, which help make it a viable study Bible. Now, the text itself is very readable. All the letters look the way they should. There aren't any nasty surprises for those of us who might still be learning them. You'll also notice that the circumflex accents are those sort of semicircle circumflex accents rather than the tilde style ones, and that to me is not a big deal, but it's worth noting. As we get to the end of the book, we see this lexicon, and the lexicon contains every Greek word that appears more than 30 times throughout the New Testament. And that's really cool because it means that between the footnotes and the lexicon itself, you have a definition, or rather a gloss, for every single word in the New Testament. Now, that is no substitute for actually knowing the words, actually being familiar with them, but it's very nice to have. Now, past the lexicon, we find a few pieces of blank paper, and then we get to the maps, the New Testament Zondervan maps. Now, these are nice maps in my opinion. They are printed on thin cardstock, really thin cardstock, and it's glossy too, so it's up to you whether you like that or not. It doesn't feel particularly premium, but again, they are nice maps. Okay, at the very end of the book we once again have this end sheet, which is significantly lighter than the text block itself. It is quite bright, whereas the text block is more of an off-white. And we have this back cover, which has the same flaws, but I actually quite like this perimeter stitching. I should have mentioned that. That's quite nice, although it is purely aesthetic in this sort of a paste-down binding. But to summarise the text itself, it's quite a nice presentation, as long as you realise the paper is not the highest quality. Now, for about $40 US, the quality is much lower than you would expect from an equivalent English Bible with these materials. But for something more specialised like this, I think it makes sense. The materials themselves obviously are not great. They're serviceable, they'll do the trick. But as I see it, this is really screaming to be rebound. In short, it's got a decent text block, it's a nice presentation of the text. The cover is just a major letdown. For that reason, if you don't want to rebind it, then I would recommend looking into the competing options from Crossway and the United Bible Societies.